Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis, and I hope all of you are having as fantastic of a Monday as your boy is. Lots of big wins over the weekend. Let's break them all down. But first, I want to let you know, tonight, Bears-Steelers. Steelers 7-point favorite, over under 40.5. You can dive in. Get up to $1,000, no risk. Hold on. Almost dying here with a cough. FanDuel.com/Clay. That is FanDuel.com/Clay. Up to $1,000, no risk. Hop in while you can and be glad that you did with $1,000, no risk. I knew if the Titans won 4 in a row against the spread that something bad was going to happen. And it may be that I die right here live on Outkick the Show as we start off, not to mention the Vols beating Kentucky over the weekend. But let's start here. State of New York. If you're watching this in the state of New York, if you visit the state of New York, hopefully by the Super Bowl, you're going to be able to gamble in the state of New York and get up to $1,000 no-risk wager. Same thing in Louisiana. FanDuel.com/Clay. That is FanDuel.com/Clay. All right, let's talk about the Titans dominating last night against the Rams. This was a full fruition of the play that was made on the defensive line for the Tennessee Titans. Last year, the Titans couldn't get any pressure on quarterbacks. They had one of the worst third down defenses in the history of the NFL. They had an elite level offense, but the defense was a disaster. So what did they do? They went and signed Bud Dupree, who's coming off an ACL injury, but should be able to play at a pretty high level as the season continues. They got Autry out of the Colts, and he's been a big difference maker inside. They allowed Jeffrey Simmons to have other people on the defensive line who could make plays and pair him with Harold Landry. That quad, and there are other players on the defensive line as well, but that quad has been able to consistently get pressure on the quarterback, including last night on Matthew Stafford, when they tallied 5 sacks, created basically 2 touchdowns for the defense. One on an interception as Matthew Stafford was being sacked near the end zone that led to a 3-yard touchdown play. Another on a Kevin Byard pick 6. And as a result, the Titans didn't have to go into the bag of tricks very much on the offensive side of the ball at all. They never really, other than a 3-0 deficit, trailed throughout this game. And they now have gotten to 7-2. Through the first 9 games of the season, and I'm trying not to get too excited about this, the Titans have played the hardest schedule in the NFL, including 6 wins against playoff teams last year. In fact, the Titans are 6-0 against playoff teams from last year. I know Derrick Henry's out, but with the remaining 8 games on the schedule, Titans also still have a bye week. The Titans have the easiest schedule remaining. Now, next 2 games are at home against the Saints and against the Houston Texans. If the Titans could win those 2 and be sitting at 9-2, there is a legitimate chance to start to think about the overall number 1 seed in the playoffs, which means the Super Bowl would run through Nashville, Tennessee. This would be incredible. It's exciting to think about. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I've been a Titans fan for over 20 years now, since they moved to Nashville. My dad's been a season ticket holder. I'm now a season ticket holder. This would be an all-timer if they could make a Super Bowl run and be able to do it out of Nashville. Biggest sporting event Nashville would have ever hosted. I'd like us to just be able to host an AFC championship game at some point. There have twice been opportunities to potentially host this AFC championship game. Both of those ended in losses, I think, to the Ravens, if I remember correctly, where the Titans were the number 1 overall seed in the playoffs and lost divisional round playoff games against the Ravens. Fingers crossed we could have a situation where maybe an AFC championship game could be played in Nashville. I want to talk about this Aaron Rodgers controversy. You guys who listen to the Clay and Buck Show, I appreciate all of you. Follow me on Twitter. You've seen a lot of what I have had to say about the Aaron Rodgers controversy. I stand behind everything that Aaron Rodgers said. We don't have a pandemic of the unvaccinated in this country. Many of the people testing positive for COVID are already have been double vaccinated. if you look at the data, and we had Ron Johnson, the senator from Wisconsin, on Clay and Buck a little bit earlier ago, he said that in the last month, 78% of the deaths in England have been in people who are double vaccinated. So this idea that if everybody were vaccinated, COVID would just go away is a form of magical thinking, much like the idea that everybody wore masks, it would just go away. It's not supported by any sort of statistical legitimacy. And so Aaron Rodgers came out and explained why he chose not to get vaccinated. Now, I support Aaron Rodgers like I support Lamar Jackson, Kyrie Irving, Carson Wentz, Kirk Cousins, any number of guys who are pro athletes. Jonathan Isaac, the Orlando Magic, who we've had on the show. I support all of them in their ability to make a rational decision about what to do with their bodies. And the reaction against Aaron Rodgers, not surprisingly, has been unbelievably toxic from the sports media, who is overwhelmingly far left-wing. And I'm going to talk about how far left-wing Twitter is in a moment, but I think it's important for everybody to recognize what's going on here. Now, there's been a demand among the woke universe out there for Aaron Rodgers' relationship with State Farm to be canceled. And I want to give credit that State Farm issued this statement, which I would say should be a template for anyone out there facing a potential issue with cancel culture. Here's what State Farm said for people who were demanding that they end their association and relationship with Aaron Rodgers. We don't support some of the statements he's made, but we respect his right to have his own personal point of view. We recognize our customers, employees, agents, and brand ambassadors come from all walks of life with differing viewpoints on many issues. Our mission at State Farm is to support safer, stronger communities. To that end, we encourage vaccinations, but respect everyone's right to make a choice based on their personal circumstances. Now, this is basically a stand-up to cancel culture move by State Farm, which really just says, hey, we want to provide insurance to everyone, Democrat, Republican, Independent, and we respect everyone's rights to have their own individual circumstances and decisions, even if sometimes we disagree with those. This is how adults behave. This is how to fight back against cancel culture, and I think we're starting to see some battles won in the fight back against cancel culture, particularly because many people finally are starting to recognize that if you actually pay attention to what people say on social media, there isn't in any way a real universe out there of people that are accurately representing the larger public. This is according to an NBC poll. Only 28% of people have ever used Twitter, and Twitter is overwhelmingly left-wing. For instance, around 40% of the American public approves of Joe Biden's job as a president. In fact, in the most recent poll, he got 38% approval and Kamala Harris got 28%. That's USA Today in Suffolk. So around 40%. Yet on Twitter, 57% of the people, because they're so left-wing, approve of Joe Biden's job as president. That is not a representative sample. Positive feelings towards Trump, 38%, according to this, of all adults have a positive view of Donald Trump. On Twitter, it is 19%. Prefer Democrats control Congress in 2022. Fully 65% of Twitter users prefer that Democrats control Congress. This is not in any way a representative sample, Twitter isn't, of the real world. In fact, Twitter represents the far left wing of the country. So I think and hope that companies are actually getting smart enough, and the State Farm response as well as the Netflix response to the Dave Chappelle controversy makes me hope that people are realizing that cancel culture isn't a real thing and it doesn't last more than a day if you're willing to stand up to it. And so I support State Farm standing by Rodgers. Now, it's also disappointing to me. I've got the biggest radio show alongside of Buck Sexton in the entire country in terms of listenership. Another guy who has a big audience, Howard Stern, in terms of satellite radio. Howard Stern, one of the all-time legends of radio. In the 90s, he was a rebellious, iconoclastic, fearless purveyor of radio. He helped open the door for a lot of people like me. The problem is, as Howard Stern has become an old man, He's become a cantankerous, far left-wing, woke loser. The Howard Stern of the 1990s would hate the Howard Stern of the 2020s. He's got so much. This is what I think's happened. I think Howard Stern has so much baggage in his past that he's hoping if he pretends to be left-wing that people aren't going to come and try to cancel him. Go look at all the crazy stuff that Howard Stern said and did when he was at his apex of the most influential radio host alongside of Rush Limbaugh, the two most influential radio hosts of all time. And now he's demanding that Aaron Rodgers should be kicked out of the NFL and not allowed to play for the remainder of the year. Again, the Howard Stern of 1990 would hate the Howard Stern of the 2020s, and it's a shame to see where exactly he has ended up. And by the way, one of the reasons why my audience is exploding and why the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show audience is exploding, there's a desperate demand for sanity in an insane world. And I want to talk about this in the context of the Florida Gators. They were a 20-point favorite on the road against South Carolina. Congrats to Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks for putting a whipping on them. Gamecocks end up winning by 20 when they are a 20-point underdog. Dan Mullen's down 30-10 at the half. South Carolina hadn't even scored more than 23 points in an entire game against any FBS opponent all year. They put up 30 in the first half against Florida. So I'm going to talk about what should happen at Florida. Scott Grantham is out, so is their offensive line coach. They fired them as a scapegoat for what ended up happening. But did you guys notice something that's almost getting no attention in the media? The Florida Gators, according to Dan Mullen, assuming he's being honest, had between 20 and 30 players test positive for the flu. Why is that significant? Because there were no restrictions whatsoever for those Florida Gator players. They were allowed to play despite they had tested positive with the flu and despite the fact that it was 20 or 30 players. Well, if you look at the data, the seasonal flu is more dangerous to young people than COVID. This is the truth if you look at the actual data. So how can you justify a policy where if Florida had had 20 or 30 players testing positive for COVID, even though most of them wouldn't have even known they had it, and even though there would be zero health-related concerns for them, there's no restrictions for the flu, and all of these restrictions still exist for COVID, it's in no way rational. Now, a couple of stats for you on Dan Mullen. He is 2-8 now in his last 10 games against FBS Power 5 opponents. That is not ideal, all right? I'm going to hit you with a couple of the stats here, and it's pretty crazy. 2-8 in the last 10 for Dan Mullen, the Florida Gators, against Power 5. 2-5 in the SEC. And not great necessarily recruiting going forward. And the only wins in the last 10 against Power 5 conference teams, Vanderbilt and Tennessee. So what should happen? Is there an NFL interest in Dan Mullen? I question it, but remember, Cliff Kingsbury got fired by Texas Tech, got the Arizona job, drafted Kyler Murray, and they have been on fire in Arizona ever since. So maybe because of Dan Mullen's success with Dak Prescott, with Kyle Trask, with Tim Tebow before that, with Fitzpatrick, all of those guys, maybe there is an interest in the NFL and he could ride off into the sunset and leave behind Florida because it feels like something is fundamentally broken and firing your defensive coordinator is not necessarily going to solve all of those issues going forward. But let me tell you my SEC power rankings right now as we run through 1 to 14. Georgia Bulldogs have only allowed 59 points all year. They are the unquestioned number one team in all of the SEC. Followed by Alabama, very questionable performance against LSU. A&M I've got in the 3 spot. Auburn at 4. Ole Miss at 5. Arkansas at 6. Mississippi State at 7. Tennessee at 8. I'll talk about Tennessee and Kentucky in a moment. Kentucky at 9. LSU at 10. South Carolina 11. Florida 12. Missouri 13, and Vanderbilt as the 14th best team in the SEC. Those are my SEC power rankings. I would encourage you guys to go check out the SEC power rankings. All you have to do is go to Outkick.com and read the starting 11. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my national top 10 in college football, the NBA mandating boosters, Broncos whip the Cowboys, the Jags beat the Bills, let's go Brandon, Biden approval, all that and more. But first, I want to tell you about my friends at Pure Talk. They have an unbelievable offer for you. Same cell phone network. You can save over $800 a year. I made the switch for my 13-year-old. We're going to get my fifth grader his own phone to be able to use sometime remotely when he needs to be able to get in touch with dad and mom. You can get unlimited talk, text, 6 gigs of data for just $30 a month. Keep your same number, keep your phone, or you can get a brand new iPhone 12 with Black Friday special prices at $479. 30-day risk-free guarantee, nothing to lose. All you have to do is go to puretalk.com and put in the promo code OUTKICK. puretalk.com, promo code OUTKICK. Again, puretalk.com. Save up to $800 a year on your family's cell phone bill. puretalk.com, promo code OUTKICK. All right, national top 10. Tomorrow we will get the latest numbers on the overall college football playoff rankings. But in the meantime, my national top 10, Georgia 1, Alabama 2, Oregon 3, Ohio State 4. If the season were ending right now, that would be my top 4 in order. I would have Georgia playing Ohio State and Alabama playing Oregon. In the 5 spot, I've got Oklahoma, followed by Michigan State, Michigan, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, and Texas A&M. That is my national right now, Outkick top 10. This is one of the big issues that I think people have to pay more attention to. Did you guys see the NBA now has mandated boosters for players who got the initial COVID Johnson & Johnson vaccine? Otherwise, they're going to be treated as the equivalent of unvaccinated. Not a lot of people talking about this as Joe Biden's OSHA mandate prepares to go into effect, although the Fifth Circuit is questioning whether it's constitutional. The NBA is saying, if you got the Johnson & Johnson one shot, it doesn't count anymore as you being fully vaccinated. You now have to get the booster, or you are treated the same way that people who are unvaccinated. And this is a question for all you sheep out there. When are the mandates going to end? Do you understand that the definition of fully vaccinated is going to continue to change? Are you going to have to continue to get more and more vaccine boosters years into the future in order to be considered fully vaccinated? It seems quite clear that is where we are headed. And what the NBA is acknowledging here is that the vaccine efficacy fades very quickly, so that even if you got the initial COVID vaccine, you are expected to continue to get boosters into the future, even though you already got the COVID vaccine. That's not enough. You'll be treated as if you are unvaccinated because you no longer qualify as fully vaccinated. That should be a little bit scary, I think, to anybody out there who thought that things were going to be over with vaccine mandates. We're just getting started based on the overreach of federal power, in my personal opinion. How about the Broncos? Putting it on the Cowboys in what I thought was probably the most surprising outcome of Sunday. Lots of underdogs won, but the Broncos being up 30-0 on the Dallas Cowboys and putting a beat down on a team that looked like they were going to be a Super Bowl contender and still might, even with Dak Prescott back. That was as bad as the Cowboys have looked in a long time with Dak at quarterback. Similarly, second biggest upset, I would say Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence. Jacksonville Jaguars didn't do a lot on the offensive side of the ball, but they found a way to win as a 2-touchdown underdog against the Bills. Josh Allen, the quarterback, did not play very well. Josh Allen, defensive end, played very well. And so the question going forward is, how quickly can these teams rebound? And what's going on that the Cowboys and the Bills both took it on the chin like they did? I'll give you my top 5, bottom 5 tomorrow. But to me, this is a really intriguing story to follow going forward. I mentioned earlier Joe Biden's approval ratings have hit a historic low. Nobody who is a president or vice president in my life, and I am 42 years old right now, has ever had a lower approval rating than Joe Biden has right now and Kamala Harris have right now. 38%. This may be like the 10th time I've had COVID. For all we know, I can't stop coughing. Joe Biden's approval rating, 38%. Kamala Harris, 28%. It's a disadvantage, by the way, of doing a solo show is when you start coughing, it's hard to stop. All right. I'm hopeful that I have just defeated the cough. The two lowest approval ratings in the last 40 years. Kamala Harris, 28% approval rating. Joe Biden, 38%. We have never seen anything like this in recorded history. It's unbelievable. Did you see the big win that Tennessee had over Kentucky? It was absolutely incredible. Josh Heupel has widely exceeded expectations in year one at Tennessee. Going 7-5, probably. Likely to lose to Georgia this weekend, but very likely to beat South Alabama and Vanderbilt. Take Tennessee into a bowl game. I think there's a good chance they end up at the Music City Bowl because they would sell a lot of tickets. But Hendon Hooker came out of nowhere to dominate this year for Josh Heupel. Did you guys see this? I want to hit you with this. This is pretty crazy. Hendon Hooker, 23 touchdowns, 19 passing, 4 rushing, 1 interception, and a 69% completion percentage. He is killing it, nearly 39 points per game. Hendon Hooker just came to Tennessee out of Virginia Tech. This is an incredible accomplishment by Josh Heupel. They dominated offensively against Kentucky, only needed the ball for 13 minutes to score 45 points. Missed a field goal, probably feel like they left some points on the field. Should be interesting to see how Georgia does. We'll have the Outkick bus tour up in Knoxville for Georgia going up against Tennessee. It's a pretty phenomenal and incredible performance in year one for everybody out there relative to what expectations were for Hendon Hooker and for the Vols. 7-5. Hopefully, I'll be in the stands at Neyland. Hopefully, they can give a little bit of a run, a little bit of a challenge against Georgia in the first half in that game. I got to tell you all about my friends at X-Chair. You guys know I work all day long. Did the starting 11, popped it out. Then I did the 3-hour show, Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Doing this show, we've got the Fade coming later this afternoon with Todd Furman, my gambling focus show. I'll be on Fox Bet Live in about a half hour on FS1. I'll be on Sean Hannity tonight. I'm not sure that there's anybody who works harder in media than I do. And one thing that you need when you are working hard is the ability to talk, which I was coughing earlier. That's pretty challenging. But also a great chair. I can get a massage. I can get heat. I can get cool. I have the ability to keep myself comfortable thanks to the X-Chair and their Elemax massage and temperature regulation. It is phenomenal. You can go to xchairclay.com. That's the letter X, chair, CLAY.com for $100 off your order. X-Chair has a 30-day guarantee of complete comfort, and you can finance your purchase for as little as $30 a month. All you have to do is go to xchairclay.com. That's xchairclay.com. Get hooked up today with an incredible offer. Did you see what happened in Wichita? They evicted a woman wearing a Let's Go Brandon sweater, allegedly, from a crowded arena. And when they evicted her in the minor league hockey arena in Wichita, the entire crowd then started to chant, "Let's go, Brandon," which is a rallying cry for people who are pointing out the absurdity of the media's cheerleading for Joe Biden and how inaccurate it is in the larger context. CNN came out with a poll today. Only 42% of Americans think that Joe Biden is focusing on the right issues right now. Just 42%. By the way, infrastructure passed late Friday night. Thanks to 13 Republicans in the House voting in favor of it, Democrats wouldn't have been able to pass it on their own. And it's a big gamble now to see whether or not the budget is still going to pass or if the infrastructure bill is going to go ahead and end up in a position where it helps to cancel out the overall tax increases and changes that might be coming for the Joe Biden budget inspired by Bernie Sanders. But I appreciate all of you. Love the Let's Go Brandon chant. Get your own Let's Go Brandon t-shirts at Outkick.com. I'll be on Sean Hannity later tonight. I will be on Fox Bet Live in about 30 minutes. We had an incredible... You guys know I hate to brag or draw attention to myself. Not really my thing to brag or draw attention to myself, but we had an incredible gambling weekend. 6-3 in college football gambling picks, 5-1 in NFL picks for a total of 11-4 over the weekend. That, my friends, pretty solid weekend of gambling picks. We needed a nice bounce back in college football in particular. It was good to get some dubs chalked back up. We're back above 500 for the year. New gambling picks will be up on Wednesday. I'll have the anonymous mailbag tomorrow. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for sticking with me as I tried to cough my way through this show. I will be back 30 minutes on television. I'm here with you tonight with Sean Hannity, and I'll be tomorrow with you with Clay and Buck as I am for 3 hours every single Monday through Friday. This has been Outkick the Show. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP.